On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we are reviewing Discovery 412, Species 10C, right after these very important words from our mystery sponsors.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the Star Trek podcast where you get to listen in on the continuing conversation two lifelong friends have been having since they were itty-bitty. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
How you doing, bud?
I'm all right, man. You know, Matt, I think back fondly on those old times when we were but a couple of wee sprouts.
Yeah.
Talking about Star Trek as we worked the fields.
We were but weeds in those fields, my friend.
Yeah, man. And then when the sun went down, you know, we'd lay out by the juniper tree watching Pa's moonshine jugs filling from the still. Remember how happy we used to be, man, when it would like come up a summer shower and Pa'd say, "We'll rest tomorrow because it'll be too wet to plow."
You say all that, but like it's not that far off from we were like literally like walking around outside an old country church with like ladies inside with fans, like that, like literally is what we were doing.
Yeah, that did happen. Yeah.
And that is like you could have described the actual events and it wouldn't have been far off. Not nearly enough jugs of moonshine in my childhood.
Yeah. Not enough Flat and Scruggs references.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Species 10C. We're here. I've been saying it for about 6 episodes that I'm ready to get to 10C. I wanted to get here. We got here.
We're here.
What'd you think of the first interactions with the 10C?
I really loved how much time they spent showing us like the Discovery crew trying to work the problem, trying to figure out how to communicate with the 10C. It's too bad that Book's just going to smooth things over next episode with his Aquaman powers.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've been thinking that. Right. I've been thinking that for a long time. Like, it's totally happening. Yeah, for sure. He is like the key to all of this, no doubt.
Yeah.
My worry is that it's going to have to be sacrificial.
Oh, nah, it's not my worry. I'm hoping. Like, nah, man.
Yeah?
You gotta pay for this shit.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I'm saying worry in that how much you've talked about how much it would be nice to see these two together. But the truth is, almost never is it good for a TV show for two characters to be happily romantic.
Yeah.
It's almost always better if there's been like a tragic loss instead.
Yeah, they haven't been happy since he's been on the ship with her. Like, something is always happening to where he's upset or, you know. Okay,
well, they have ups and downs, but like they were pretty happy in the previous seasons. Like they had issues, and there are always issues of him wanting to be at Starfleet or not, and deciding who he is and all that. But they were pretty happy. Yeah. It wasn't until this season that rift's really been drawn.
Right. So yeah, like and by the way, I was right. They did need an engineer, because if they had captured anyone other than Jet, she wouldn't have known Tarka's calculations were off and wouldn't have been able to sway Book from helping him. So
yeah, well, we thought it was going to be that they would need, but it just was Book needed her to be able to see what was going on. And also we just called it so hard. Yeah, like he did not have Tarka on a leash. Like, he just didn't. He thought he did, and Tarka gave himself superpowers, basically, while on the ship. He's got freaking, like, security stuff that's just force fields and some sort of, like, blast powers. Like, Tarka has made himself a little god on this ship.
he's Tony Starking all over that shit. And, like, did they just waste an episode showing us Tarka's backstory to make us feel sorry for him? Because it didn't work. Because I don't feel bad for him now. Like, I felt bad for him for exactly one episode. And now I'm just like, nope, you're just a dick.
Yeah, and I don't know, to be honest, I don't know that I don't know that I still don't really understand the whole thing. Like, he wants to get the power source, but now he's just going to he wants to blow these people up. Like, I don't really understand how this gets him home either.
I don't either.
It is not clear to me what his game plan is.
I have been confused about that for the last couple episodes. I'm like, what are we doing here?
Because he says the power source is on this side of the DMA. So somewhere on this side of the wormhole, the power source is. So if he blows up the Tensee's home, does he get the power source?
I don't know.
I don't know. And they're so powerful. He's just so freaking prideful that he can't accept that the Tennessee might just be way more powerful than him. You know, his first plan didn't work, and now he's just going in on another plan that is very likely to fail. And even if it works, in quotation marks, like, will he be able to, like, you know, retrieve whatever he needs from them? Will they not, like, lash out and just take him down? You know?
Yeah. I honestly, I hope he succeeds, and I hope that whatever his little dimension is that he's got to get to, I hope it's just like a desolate hellscape wasteland that he's trapped in, and his boy's not there, and he's just stuck there for all eternity, like an episode of the Twilight Zone.
I knew exactly where you're going. Yeah, I was like, that's a very Twilight Zone ending for this, and I'm down for that. Here's what I hope. I hope the Tennessee catches him. You know, Discovery and Book stop him, and Tennessee catches him. They turn him over as like a prisoner to the Tennessee, and they're like, "Oh, you just want to go to that wasteland? Sure." Bloop, and they send him, and he's like, "You'll send me? Thank you." And he's like finally like subservient to these people, and they send him, and it's just like a desolate wasteland.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
And Oros's head is on like a pike.
Oh gosh, that's awful. That's terrible.
That's what you get. And I am totally on board them putting Ndoye. I want her set up for treason for her role in venting the plasma and letting them escape. Like, she's a xenophobic jerk, and she needs to pay.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, she definitely crossed a line this episode. She knew what she was doing. She said, "I can't do that. It's one thing to communicate, but this is betrayal. Like, this is straight up betrayal. This is," and she, you know, the odds of the Earth getting into the Federation after this are looking pretty dim, with her at the helm or whatever.
Yeah, no, she needs to be thrown in the clink, as they say.
Indeed, as they say.
Of course, it's the future, so it's not really a clink so much as it's just sort of a.
You run your metal cup against the force field. Just doesn't have the same effect.
No.
But I really did enjoy how much we got the team focused on solving the problem. You know what I mean? I really loved all the communication stuff.
Yeah. I would have liked more from the bridge crew because they beamed him in. And they just like each said one thing and they solved it. Like, give me a montage of them like working the problem or something. Like,
I hear that, but the reason I did like that it was all one conversation or a couple of conversations is I love an escape room, and I love a puzzle, and I just really enjoyed like sitting with them and like watching them like solve, because I was solving it. I like a thing where I'm watching a show and actually solving it with them. Like, I'm like, oh, if it's 3 dimensions, they could rotate, and there it is. It locks, you know, and I'm watching it and trying to solve it with them, which is really fun. Mm-hmm. Did you ever play Batman VR, by the way?
Yeah.
You did?
At your house for like about 15 minutes before I got dizzy.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, it's very cool, and they do a whole lot of stuff with like puzzles, because it's not really an action game. It's more of a puzzle solve and move on to the next thing kind of game. But it's very detective oriented, and there's all kinds of stuff where like you get holographic shards of a bullet, and you have to like reformat the bullet so that you can tell what kind of gun it's from or whatever, you know, stuff like that. But you're like in 3D space grabbing bullet fragments and like piecing them together like a puzzle. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love puzzles and stuff like that.
I don't care for the puzzles. I often say I'm not bright. I think the truth is I'm of average brightness, but much like my living room bulb, I blink. I'm just as bright as the others. I just blink a lot. I can't stay focused to quell the darkness.
Indeed. The darkness creeps in.
It does.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this was a really cool episode. I've been excited to get here. I love to actually see them trying to communicate with the 10C. And, they wrote an interesting problem that was like, interestingly solvable and like reasonable. Like the whole idea about, we've been saying it, but like the whole idea behind this species being so powerful and not understandable, but also the way that they are trying to, with empathy, reach back to these creatures that are at such a lower level of, development and trying to communicate the same way we would with someone. And they made all those analogies. I loved it. I just thought it was really cool. The analogy of the math problems and them trying to solve, like, I'm sitting there at the same time as them, like watching them talk about like, how do we communicate? What is a human? And or like, what are we as the Federation? And they came up with the breathing idea. Stuff like that is just like, that's perfect. So much fun.
I loved all of that. I was really on board. All of that. That was good.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So the 10C, they scanned Discovery, they sent a silver egg, and when they walked inside, that egg had replicated Discovery. Is that our road to Calypso? Did they scan Discovery so thoroughly that they replicated Zora, and will that replicated Zora then become sentient as well, and will it turn into a proper Discovery floating around with no crew? Is that our way to a happy ending and Calypso happening?
It's possible, but I don't think so. I think that is more likely that whatever they're going to do in this future that we're in now, I have a feeling Discovery has not finished its time travel.
No.
Maybe it has, but I have a feeling that the thing is, you talk about a happy ending, but this could go 6 more seasons and then they leave the ship stranded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this could go for a while. At some point, they're going to need to abandon ship. At some point, they're going to need to abandon Zora. At some point, Zora is going to need to, like, make a sacrifice to be like, all of you can go and I will stay here and fight off the whatever. But also, how do we get to a future not only of that, but also of the Vidreish and all of that stuff. Like, all that stuff with Calypso is like, super interesting.
Not to mention the fact that the Discovery isn't even like upgraded. Zora is the only thing that's been upgraded. But in that way, that's
not true. They upgraded the cells. They've upgraded everything. The communications, I'm saying transporters.
In Calypso, it was not the Discovery A. It was regular Discovery, and they played it in that short like Discovery had been alone for so long that the computer developed sentience. Of course, we now know that that's not exactly how that went down, but the ship was not upgraded in that short.
Right.
Now, I was on that Star Trek podcast with Sean Ray and Rick from Starbase 66 last night, and they don't think that they're ever going to address it. They don't think they're going to address Calypso, but I'm like, they keep bringing stuff back from Calypso, like Zora, and they keep, throwing these, putting these little needles through.
I feel like Zora is definitely like a reason that they're aiming toward Calypso. I would say that I don't think they even really necessarily, as much as you will hate this, and I kind of hate this, I think that there's a possibility they won't at all explain why it looks like the Discovery instead of Discovery A or whatever. Like, I think it's very possible they'll just be like, hey, we left it. And she has programmable matter. Maybe she got nostalgic for how her original look. She wanted to look like a younger Discovery.
See, I was thinking like, maybe she's, whatever happens where they have to leave, maybe she's damaged and she can't remember everything, so maybe she just like reverts back to an older version.
Sure.
I don't know.
There's all kinds of ways for that to work.
My headcanon's ready.
Oh, yeah.
It's Star Trek.
I'm fully ready to headcanon plenty of things. It's fine. But then I think about what they did with making the Enterprise, and we'll see how well they continue this with Strange New Worlds, but making the Enterprise match up with the technology of the previous, the original series, where they like, hey, could rip out all that holographic stuff. Like, they did the work of throwing in a few lines for us. You know what I mean? And it was ham-fisted as hell, but it was there. They cared that us canon heads were like, no, you can't have that yet. And they fixed it. So,
well, they didn't fix it because it doesn't look like the original series at all. But
we'll see. We'll see what they do in the coming year.
I think a fair amount of season 2 of Discovery and season 3 was just trying to course correct from a previous regime, who in of itself was trying to course correct from a regime we would have probably liked quite a bit, which was Brian Fuller, who wanted to do straight up like toggle switches and knobs and shit. So, I think there's obviously been a couple of rocky starts on Discovery.
It's always a weird thing because and we've had this discussion before, and I know you think the toggle switches can work. Oh, yeah. It's not that I don't think they can work, but I do think it is things like Pong on the view screens and shit. Like, I think that it is hard to imagine a future of now. Like, the whole idea behind Star Trek, it's the future of now. Like, we go forward from now, and this is the future we're looking towards. Yeah. And it's supposed to be this hopeful idea. And so to make it a show where they've gone to toggle switches when we have iPads now, it does feel weird. Like, I understand the need to kind of update the technology but that's the whole point behind not doing a fucking prequel. But they're gonna keep doing it, because they're gonna live in this era of Kirk forever.
Which it kills me because they went to the trouble of remastering the original series, which fixed the problem. Like, it fixed a lot of the problem. They replaced a lot of the little weird manual things with digital thing. Cool.
They pulled their George Lucas out,
yeah, without actually being as destructive as Lucas was, I think.
Right. No, I'm just teasing.
And actually, I love what they did because they made ships that Jeffries designed and they never got to build because it was too expensive.
That's rad.
But speaking of Star Wars, they do a fantastic job of just not screwing with the way technology looked. Like in those old movies.
The Star Trek fans all have a great affection for that particular thing.
Yeah.
And I think Star Trek fans tend to be a little more forward looking, where they're like, it's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like Star Trek is supposed to be the future of now, whereas Star Wars is the ancient past. And so whatever their technology looks like doesn't have to have any kind of analog to what we're doing here. Like, they cannot have communicators, they cannot have whatever they want, but we have cell phones now. So for them not to be able to tap their chest and talk is a problem.
It's that thing where it's like, as a science fiction fan, I see Star Wars doing the thing I wish Star Trek would do. I see Doctor Who doing the thing I wish Star Trek would do. Just embracing the old look of things when you reference that old shit. And don't try to explain it. Just go, yeah. Of course, we could explain it. We could explain why women weren't allowed on the bridge. There are ways to do it and actually make it interesting to where you go oh, holy shit. You think what if there was they came up against some enemy that it specifically attached itself to women, so they had to get women off the bridge, stop letting women serve on ships. All this, there could be a virus or something,
or just the great grandchild of Trump won that year.
Right. Good old Commodore Trump.
So,
see, I have fun trying to come up with ways that certain weird problems can happen. You think about Battlestar Galactica and how the Cylons happened, so they had to go backwards in technology.
Sure.
Star Trek could have easily done that in some way.
Sure, that's true. And they talk about how the wars, the nuclear wars and stuff, we lost
Romulans,
technology. Yeah. Well, even before that, World War III or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They lost some technology during that. You could do things that make sense. The issue with it is, it's how much do you want to be beholden to old stuff versus allowing for creativity and allowing for that original vision. It's like, how much do you want to be the vision of what Roddenberry was trying to do with, like, look at this hopeful future. We've solved all the problems and now we've solved all the problems in humanity. Now we're trying to, like, go to the stars and do new things. And of course they hadn't, but part of that is because he's thinking through the lens of a man in the 60s. Like, so how much do you want to update that vision for a future and make Star Trek still about that? And how much do you want to hold on to a vision of the future from the 60s? You know, it's and I mean, they've done some clever things, like the Orion slave girls ending up being that they were in charge in Enterprise. Like that was a clever turn. It's a clever, like, third wave feminism way of looking at the Orion slave girls. Like, I love that. I think that's super interesting and fun. And I'm not opposed to those sorts of things, but at some point, you get to the point where you're having to write in lines about removing holographic technology that sound ham-fisted. And it's like, do you want every episode to be like, yeah, we still want to do the fun things, but let's spend the first 5 minutes explaining how this is possible in this universe. You know? It gets a little tiring, and I get why writers just want to be like, let's forge forward, let's make new things. And that's why things like the Kelvinverse are interesting, because it's like still Star Trek, but it's brand new. You can do whatever you want. You can have any combination of technology you want. Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm always going to kind of bristle at prequels because of that very issue. Just move forward. Don't address it.
Well, and that's why I just mentioned the Covenverse, because it's like that was a super clever solution to this.
It was.
It's like, let's make a Kirk-style show, but let's go back 20 years before Kirk and insert technology. That's I never really thought of it that way, but, like, that's what they did. That was the cleverness of that. It's like, let's make a Star Trek show that looks modern but is in the Kirk timeline. But how can we do that? Let's take Borg technology and insert it 20 years before Kirk. That's so cool.
Yeah, it is. But of course, the downfall of it was the guy that you were talking about the other week. Like, half the audience, I feel like, thought, "Oh, they just erased the original series."
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
Right.
Everything had to have happened for this alternate reality to happen.
Yep. Listen to Bruce Banner.
Oh, God.
Sorry. It's that Marvel, like, the future has to continue to happen because if it doesn't, then it creates paradox.
Yeah. They've you haven't kept up with Legends of Tomorrow, have you?
I have not.
They brought in Donald Faison as Booster Gold.
Donald Faison.
Turk from Scrubs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, he'd be a great Booster Gold. That's a great call.
And they go to they found out that there are fixed points in time, and those fixed points in time are guarded by, like, gatekeepers, people who are, like, there, like, making sure the timeline stays the way it is. And they're trying to save somebody. And so they go down and they, like, write a message on their hands knowing that he's going to be there because it's a fixed point. So we see Booster Gold, Donald Faison, showing up like he's playing golf through, like, a frozen field of soldiers warring with each other. And he sees the legends and he knows who they are. And he sees their message and he, pulls them out. And they're trying to explain to him what they need. And he's like, "Look, man, I can't do this. They gave me this responsibility to make sure the timeline is," and they're just like, "But dude, like, this is the guy that you're helping invented time travel, and his boyfriend's over in the field about to get killed. So, like, all of that had to have happened. It's just going to create a paradox. You're not really needed here." And he goes, "Oh my God, you're right." And they're like, "So you'll help us?" And he's just like, "Those dicks! I gotta talk to somebody." And he just storms off. He's like, "They've been playing me."
That makes me want to catch up because I love Donald Faison in Scrubs. He's one of my favorite parts of that show.
Legends is fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first few seasons, but it wasn't so much Legends. It was no individual show. It was the overwhelming amount of CW that I just couldn't. And I'm such a canon person that I needed to watch it all to watch it all.
I'll tell you this: Legends didn't even tie into Crisis on Infinite Earths, really.
Really? That's shocking.
It was. Yeah, they sat it out. Like, there was a whole, like, thing where they had, like, the big bad of, or we thought the big bad of Crisis showing up on each show. and like steering things. And then they had an episode of Legends where they're like having a fight and we just see him hanging out over in the corner, like eating popcorn and watching them. Like he didn't steer anything. It was just like a joke that he was there because he was on all the other shows. But
weird. Okay, interesting.
I mean, they do kind of have like a small role, but it's not a big deal.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, once you get to a certain level of so many shows involved, it's like everybody can't have a huge part, you know?
Yeah. No.
All right. Well, man, this I'm excited to see what happens next week on this episode upcoming. Well, I say next week. It's like 2 days away now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get next week's Discovery up quicker since Picard is not the season finale. We'll try to do Discovery first next week, I think. Right?
I mean, whatever you want to do, man.
we had talked about it before. I think it's a good idea, just because I'm excited about the finale. And then honestly, after we get the finale out, we can go ahead and do Picard.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm a blinking bulb. I told you. I don't know what the hell's happening.
I hear that. Well, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Star Trek Universe. Jolan True.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.